Welcome back to Wittenberg Academy's Latin course. We're in first year Latin. We're taking a look at lesson 24 today. It's on page 40, and it barely begins on page 40, really begins on page 25. We're continuing to look at nouns and the different endings, and so we know a set of feminine endings: a, I, aurum, is, us, is. We know a set of masculine endings: us, o, e, aurum, is, os, is. And we know a set of neuter endings: o, a, aurum, is, a, is. So the endings we're getting now for on the top of page 41 for puer, which means boy; auger, which means field, and has its stem changes from auger to agr, agr; and wir, which means man or husband. So these are masculine nouns that happen to end in R. Okay? Most of the masculine nouns we learned end in US. Right? So Filius for son ends in US. But puer, boy, ends in an R. And as you can see, it's still pretty much the same endings. So if you look, puer, that's the nominative singular, but then it goes e, o, e, aurum, is, os, is. Same thing with auger. It's auger, but then it's agri, e, o, e, aurum, is, os, is. And same thing, wir, man, but then e, o, e, aurum, is, os, is. So it's the same masculine endings you've learned, except in the nominative singular, which is the form you learn when you write it on your note card. So there's not a lot new here to learn. You just need to make a set of note cards for the ending. And you also have to now notice that sometimes the stem is a little different from the nominative. That is, in auger, the genitive singular is agri, not ageri. It's agro, not agero. That E slides out so the syllables come together. There are a few words like that. And that's why, look at the vocabulary in the middle of page 41. That's why they always give you the genitive singular in the vocabulary. So gener, generi. Excuse me, gener, generi. Gener, generi. Son-in-law. Latus is an adjective. It means wide. Liber, libri. See, they give you the genitive singular so you know if the E comes out or not. So when you write that down on your note card, you should write liber, comma, libri, so that you'll remember how the genitive works. Liberi, liberorum. That one, right, doesn't come out in the plural, children. Magister, magistri, master or teacher. Magistra, mistress, teacher. Socer, soceri, father-in-law. So you need to add those to your note cards as well and begin to learn them. Very well. We'll do as we always do in our translating from Latin into English. You can try to work them out one at a time. Pause the video between, and then you can come back and see how I did them. And I think you should also, write these down. Really work at it. Get an answer for number 1. Have it written down. And then start the video back up and listen to how I go through it and see how you did. On the quiz, the translation work, we did it as a bonus, and because it is difficult. And what I want you to be really focusing on is learning your vocabulary and learning the forms and being able to reproduce those. But of course our goal is to eventually be able to translate Latin very easily. So this is good practice and kind of puts everything together. So take your time today, tomorrow, and do each one of these, write them down, and then come back to the video and see how I go through them and try to understand what mistakes you're making. If you have any questions, of course, email me and so forth. Like if you keep making the same mistake, send me an email so that on the next quiz you can nail all the translation, figure out what you're doing wrong, and nail that next translation section on the next quiz. Alright, number 1. Liberi, libros, magistro, recitant. Liberi, libros, magistro, recitant. First thing we look for is the verb, recitant, and that's from recito, which means I read. So recitant, that ending, right? O, os, ot, amus, otis, ant. Third person plural, they are reading. Anything in the nominative? Do you see a noun in the nominative case? Yes. Liberi, the children. The children are reading. What are they reading? That has to be in the accusative, libros. The children are reading books. And then magistro, what case is that? Us, e, o, o, e, orum, is, os, is. So it's either dative singular or accusative singular. We translate the dative singular with to. So the children are reading books to the master. Sentence 2. Galba non socer Pompeii erat. Galba non socer Pompeii erat. So I need a verb. It's erat. He was. That's the verb. Anything in the nominative? Yes, Galba and socer. So Galba was not the socer, the father-in-law, and then Pompeii is in what case? The genitive. How do we translate the genitive? With of. Galba was not the father-in-law of Pompey. Sentence 3. Puer agrum latum arat. Puer agrum latum arat. Need a verb. The verb is arat. Comes from the verb aro, which means I plow. What ending is it? Say your endings for that. O, os, ot, amus, otis, ant. It's third person singular. He plows. Anything in the nominative to go with the verb? Yes, puer. The boy plows. What does he plow? That's going to be in the accusative. The boy plows the agrum latum. The boy plows the wide field. Sentence 4. Viri et feminae in schola filios et filias laudant. Viri et feminae in schola filios et filias laudant. What's the verb? Laudant. What ending is that? Third plural. O, os, ot, amus, otis, ant. It means they praise. Anything in the nominative? Yes. Viri et feminae. Men and women. The men and the women praise. Whom do they praise? That has to be in the accusative. So they're praising filios et filias. The men and the women praise the sons and the daughters in schola, in school. Sentence 5. Athletai victorias puerorum puellis narrant. Athletai victorias puerorum puellis narrant. Verb, narrant. Ending, o, os, ot, amus, otis, ant. They narrate. They tell the story. Who is doing that? That has to be in the nominative. Athletai. That's a nominative. The athletes narrate. What do they narrate? That will be in the accusative, the direct object. The athletes narrate the victories. Puerorum. What case is that? Us, e, o, e, orum, isos, is. Genitive plural. The athletes narrate the victories. How do we translate the genitive? With of. Of the boys. The athletes narrate the victories of the boys. Puellis. What case is puellis? A, I, arum, is, os, is. It's either dative plural or ablative plural. And we translate, let's try the dative first. We translate that with to or for. The athletes narrate the victories of the boys to the girls. That sounds right. Sentence 6. Filius magistri fabulam discipulis recitat. Filius magistri fabulam discipulis recitat. What is the verb? Recitat. How do you translate it? What's the ending? Who's reciting? O as at. Third person singular. He recites. Is there anything in the nominative to go with it? Filius. The son recites. What does he recite? Has to be in what case? The direct object? Has to be in the accusative. The son recites a story, a fabulum. The son recites a story. Okay, now let's put the rest of it. Filius magistri. What case is magistri? Genitive singular. Us e homo. Eorum is os is. So the son of the teacher, we translate genitive with of. The son of the teacher recites the fable, the story, discipulis. What case is discipulis? Us e o, e orum is os is, dative or ablative. Let's start with dative. The son of the master, of the teacher, recites the fable to the disciples, to the students. The son of the teacher recites the story to the students. 7. Hoc anno eritis in Italia. Hoc anno eritis in Italia. What's the verb? Eritis. Right? From ero, eras, erat, eramus, eritis, errant. Right? Is there anything in the nominative? No. Right? So it's just the verb by itself. You will be. You will be. Hoc anno. You will be. Anno is ablative. In this year. In this year, you will be in Italy. In this year, you will be in Italy. All right. So, this lesson, you've got a few vocabulary words to add to your notes and begin studying. And you have also got new chart there for puer and auger. Those endings where, masculine endings where the nominative ends in R. And then the little box there by the chart for puer, auger, and weir. After lesson 24, write and self-grade Wheelock, pages 414 to 415, chapter 4 and 5, odd numbers only. Let's hold off on that. You should probably add, I would like you to add the vocabulary from Wheelock, chapters 4 and 5 to your note cards. Okay, let's still work on keeping up with the vocabulary in Wheelock. And if you have extra time and you want more practice, you can do more of the exercises there on page 414 and 415. That really is secondary to studying the vocabulary and studying the forms. We kind of do our translation practice here. I want you to take that seriously in these videos. But do the vocabulary for Wheelock chapter 4 and chapter 5. Add those to your note cards so we've got more words to work with. But really focus on studying that vocabulary and the forms. And we will do one more lesson this week, lesson 25, which we'll do in the next video.